Welcome to the Clean School Bus Informational Webinar. Today we'll be discussing EPA's Clean School Bus program, which provides $5 billion over 5 years to replace existing school buses with zero-emission buses. Every day, millions of children hop onto school buses that run on dirty diesel engines that spew exhaust laden with pollutants. An electric bus runs on battery power with no tailpipe emissions, which is why Mom's Clean Air Force is such a strong supporter of this program. Our speakers today will delve into the specifics of the program and how your school can get support for applying. I would like to introduce our speakers and thank each one of you for being here today. Our speakers today will be Tyler Salamasick with the Environmental Protection Agency Region 5 Office, Dr. Ryan Krohn, Superintendent, Palmyra-Eagle, I'm going to get this, Palmyra-Eagle School District, Dr. Willie Garrison, Superintendent of Beloit Schools, and Joshua Williams, Senior Midwest Regional Manager with Highland Electric Fleets. Welcome, everyone. For our audience, I'd like to encourage you to write your questions in the question and answer box or the chat. So let's start with our first speaker, Tyler Salamasick.
So my name is Tyler Salamasick. I work for the Environmental Protection Agency out of Region 5, which is Chicago. And I'm just going to talk about our funding opportunity. So kind of as Jayne mentioned earlier, we've got $5 billion over a 5-year window. We've been replacing electric school buses and clean school buses and swapping them out. This 2024 rebate is our fourth funding round. Here's just a quick look at how Wisconsin did previously. In 2022, there were 16 schools that were awarded funding. There's about $12 million for 30 electric school buses, 10 propane buses, and then we had the 2023 grants where 2 schools were awarded, and that was 42 electric school buses. And then the 2023 rebates, we had even more schools at 24 with 75 electric school buses and 16 propane. This funding was just announced a couple weeks ago now, and EPA is planning on awarding up to $965 million for clean school buses. That includes propane, compressed natural gas, and electric school buses. And the requirements are replacing old diesels. It gets a little more complex than that, and I recommend looking at the guidance for exactly what vehicles can be swapped out for which. That's just a general idea right there. And then EPA is prioritizing high-need schools, schools that serve tribes, and then rural remote areas. This round's a rebate, which is similar to a grant, but actually it's easier to implement. It's faster. It was more widely liked by most applicants in the last few rounds, and it's streamlined, so applicants can put their applications in pretty easily. This is just a quick list of who can apply. So you've got public schools, you have tribal applicants, and you have third parties, which are usually nonprofits that buy transportation or eligible contractors. And I will say the applications are due right in the beginning of January, so eye out for when that changes or when that date is popping up. Here's just a quick definition of what the high need schools are. And then the rural remote is schools that are actually listed as a remote school based on the NCES locale code. And then there's Bureau of Indian Education funded schools and schools that receive basic support payments for children who live on Indian lands. This is one of the bigger changes we've seen this round. One of the big ones is we'll be funding up to 50 buses, which it's up from the last funding round. But the funding amounts are actually lower. So if you see here for Class 7, we've dropped it down to $325,000 per bus and charging infrastructure. That's for the Class 7s at a priority school, and then if you're a non-priority district, it's $170,000. Then the other ones are listed out on this table. I will add though that Some schools in the distant U.S. states or territories can get up to $20,000 for school buses that have a high shipping cost. That most likely wouldn't apply to Wisconsin, but the ADA compliant buses would, where they can get another 20,000 if the bus is ADA compliant. And then there's tax credits that we'll talk about just for a little bit. So as EPA, we can't give tax advice. We can only refer to the IRS guidance documents. But if you take a look at the website, there's about $40,000 for clean commercial vehicles, and then there's an alternate fuel property credit as well. Just recommend going on the IRS's website and looking there for more information. So as I mentioned earlier, there's 50 more buses this round instead of the original 25. We believe this can help kind of larger school districts have access to a larger pool of buses where they have more aggressive projects to replace a larger number of buses. So the eligible buses, if you have a 2010 or older diesel bus, that one has to be scrapped in order to be eligible for funding. If you don't have a newer, and it has to operate at least 3 days a week on average, with some exceptions. If you don't have a newer, or if you don't have a 2010 or older, then they're eligible for scrap, sale, or donation. Here's a list of the requirements for the replacement bus. So it has to be either battery electric, compressed natural gas, or propane drivetrain. It must be a new vehicle, so it can't be purchasing used ones. And it has to be a model year 23 or newer. There's some other requirements, but I just recommend you take a look at our EPA guidance material on the website. And then just here's a few more conditions. It needs to be purchased, not leased to own. It can't be purchased prior to receiving selection for EPA funding. And it can't be a retrofit. That's all I've got for slides, but I can send you them so you've got a copy. If that works.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll turn it back to you, Jayne.
All right, thank you so much, Tyler. All right, our next speaker is Superintendent Krohn.
Good morning, everybody. How are you? My name is Ryan Krohn. I'm the superintendent of the Palmyra-Eagle Area School District. Our school district is nestled between Milwaukee, Madison, and the Janesville Beloit area. We're a rural school district. Of course, that phone just rang. We're a rural school district serving just over 600 students in multiple communities. We serve 3 counties: Waukesha County, Walworth County, and Jefferson County in terms of the region that we, the area that we have. I want to make sure my slide deck is showing. Here we go. Is that, I think somebody else might be sharing. That should be on. Is that showing up for anybody? I apologize.
It's not, Dr. Krohn. It's just showing your beautiful picture with your Panther Pride standing there on the screen.
Okay, so that is on. That's all I need to know. I've not seen. And did it just change?
It's not, unfortunately. No, it just did. Now it
Okay,
is.
I'll roll with that now. Thank you, Dr. Garrison. All right, I'll get this rolling a little bit better. So anyway, as superintendent, we were lucky enough to receive, as you can see here, our first electric buses from the EPA award last year. As a school district, we wrote for that grant alongside a partnership with Dousman Transport Company. We do not own our own buses, so this became a real partnership with our local company that serves our students. This is me standing there last winter with our Panther Pride and electric charger on our campus. Our buses are located on our campus, and I'll get into some of the details here in a minute. Just a little known fact about Palmyra, and I think it helps for context. Our school district was one of the first school districts in Wisconsin to almost dissolve about 6-7 years ago. There was some forecasting happening with enrollment and other pieces that it looked that way. Thanks to our school board, thanks to our community rallying around the school and finding a way to stay open, we did so. But in the meantime of staying open, it really required us to look at being really innovative and finding as many efficiencies as we can. But at the same time with finding efficiencies, we wanted to find effectiveness, and that for the classroom, but it also included buses. And when we looked at what would be more efficient, we found some things with the electric bus possibilities. But we also thought it would be more effective in terms of health, in terms of safety, and in terms of other pieces for our community. And so that sort of spurred us into this moment. In writing that grant and in receiving the amazing award from Tyler's team and the EPA, that really fast forwarded us into thinking about this transformation. While the bus that you can see in this picture is yellow and it has the same number of wheels as a traditional bus, you can't hear it, you can't smell it, and it really was a transformational change in sort of our operations in terms of now buses were going to be charged on site, and we wanted to look at things like that. I mentioned our school district where we were, but we are trying to make a comeback with this model, and the buses were a big part of it. As you can see, we actually were the first electric buses in the state of Wisconsin to receive. We had 6 buses in our fleet. It is our entire fleet that went electric. There are still a couple of moments right now, based on where the infrastructure is, that we still use diesel buses when we have to go on long trips across the state, whether it's for a sporting event or a field trip, just because of the charging capabilities. But we see that as more and more districts have this, we see some of those small hiccups going away in the near future as we go forward. But you can also see on here a number of other areas that we have are other partnerships, everything from We Energies, installing many of our electric pieces to Giraffe Electric and other partnerships as we go. This is the moment of truth. This is myself and a couple of bus drivers pulling into a gravel lot saying, what are we going to do here? This is the first electric bus coming to test our spot. And at this very moment, we laugh because we had designed our charging system to charge buses in the front, because some can be charged in the front, but we learned at this very moment that these also can get charged in the back. And so some of those like common errors that you're going to face when knowing very little about some of these things, but this is the partnership, and we worked with our bus company here and to try to figure things out. And it was an exciting moment, but it was a lot of sort of learning as we went of how this was going to play out. Our school board, I mentioned before, focused a lot on sustainability from our environment, social, and economic. And so when this electric bus piece came in and we were weighing our options, we really looked at some of the benefits that this could provide, not just the fuel savings and costs that I think every district is looking for, but some of the other health pieces. Even besides the health and the comparisons with health and diesel, just the noise pollution. Bus drivers are reporting quieter rides. Students are reporting quieter rides, and just the noise level, even amongst the rides, has created for a more pleasant and safer journey. This is what things look like. And again, logistic challenges in Wisconsin, one of the first questions we got, were these things going to run in the winter? Now, we did have some moments of deep, deep cold this year. And so what did that do? Are these buses going to run? And more important from a superintendent standpoint, are our students and families going to get their kids to school in a safe manner? Yes, our buses made it through some of those darkest cold days. And I know there's some add-ons that the buses can have for some winter heating solutions. But the times that the buses were in doubt, the diesel buses were in doubt as well from the company. So it's just one of those moments. Those are the great moments for Wisconsin to really put their boots on and make sure we get to school. This is a partnership. There's Anthony from EPA, and we had different groups that were here, part of our kickoff. And we really wanted this to be a community kickoff so people could see what we were doing, because we were talking about an infrastructure. So this event was really a celebration moment for us with all the hard work that was behind the scenes. We've been trying to partner with EPA and Tyler and Group and just doing everything we can to invest in what else we can do next. And what that led to was us thinking about not just being the first in Wisconsin, but we wanted to start to look at changing our infrastructure. This is us installing some of the new grids throughout our system. But installing those grids, we also made a decision that we said we knew that more cars for staff and potentially for students, we're going to be required to have an infrastructure for maybe charging at our campus. And it's something we hadn't thought of prior to this moment. So this moment became a pivot point for us thinking about what else we can do for staff and students in our community in terms of charging stations. And this even led further into us thinking about other efficiencies regarding solar panels and other pieces, because we learned so much from EPA beyond just the buses that we started to build our 10-year capital plan for our school district into a more environmentally friendly one, or a more sustainable one, with looking at these alternative solutions. So it was a great moment of sort of breaking ground. And when you literally break ground, it was sort of forging a new mindset as well across our district. Our drivers, there's Jessica, one of our drivers, and works at our company. But when she was going, a lot of media came in. They're filming her during a drive. That does not look safe, but she's a great driver with 10 and 2 on the wheel there. But she really got a chance to do this conversation. And it became a narrative that we invited media, families, grandparents to get on our buses to really break the mold of what they thought was happening, and to really understood what this experience would be like. The ribbon cutting allowed us to really, again, do a public celebration of what's happened here. And again, on the surface, it's a yellow bus getting kids to and from school on time, but deep down it became a mark of a transformational change for us. The grant was phenomenal. Really did help us be able to do this something and be able to put us in a spot to go from here. We've made the paper and the press all along for events like this with the Moms Clean Air Force Act and conversations, but we believe our job is to continue to share everything we learned from installing our chargers backwards and other things like that, but also pushing this forward into our classroom and other experiences. We've learned Renew Wisconsin, that their summit, and this is where we continue to do partnerships and continue to learn as we go forward. These are our 2 finance directors right now in our district, and this is, again, we look at finance and stretching our dollars, but our business managers and leaders are always looking at what we can do for our next effort. This was a launch just this same year. We have a great agricultural program, but we launched a brand new greenhouse with community donations at the same time. And my point is, it's really started to grow into so many facets of not just electric buses, but sustainability, and pushing into our classroom for our agriculture programs and looking at other alternative fuel sources. So we tried to take this moment and really capitalize on it for students and experiences. Whoops, there was our students, the last picture. I apologize that took off, but our students were the ones who were a part of our showcase. You can see their t-shirts say plugged in and powered up. Our job was that we are plugged in, but we really want to empower these students for their future and to continue to make choices for the future as we go. So as you can tell, I'm pretty excited about what's unfolded. You can say a bus is a bus, but in this moment, the bus became a transformational moment for us for looking at our 10-year capital plan. We're thinking about energy in our curriculum and really forming the relationships that we want in our community, so that we can form the partnerships that we need, not only across our community, but other organizations. So thanks for having me on today, and can take questions or jump in at the end.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Superintendent Garrison.
Well, I don't have a presentation to present, because we are in the infancy stages in this conversation. So unlike Dr. Krohn over in Palmyra-Eagle, we have just applied for our grant over this past year in partnership with, of course, the Highland Electric Fleet and the Durham Bus Company. So all of us naturally came together and put our application in, and we did receive our award in around 3 conversations here in Wisconsin, and our award was about $8.7 million. Our electrification, of course, in this conversation in the school district of Beloit hasn't started yet. Again, we're in the infancy stages of that conversation. One of the things that, of course, attracted me to the conversation was, number one, it started with a question. Our business manager came to me and was like, "Hey, Dr. Garrison, do you think you want to apply for the EPA grant for clean buses?" And I was like, "Sure," right? And so we applied. Of course, our partners, and again, Durham and again, Highland Electric Fleet, all participated in the grant opportunity. And of course, blink your eyes twice, and I believe we received the second highest award in the state of, again, about $8.7 million with about 25 buses, not 25 million buses, but 25 buses that we'll have here in the school district of Beloit. If, of course, when we are able to make all of the decisions that are needed to make this happen. So unlike Mr. Krohn mentioned, there is a process that we still have to go through. Naturally, we have to talk about where the buses will be. We want to make sure that when we do get the buses, that we put the charging cables in the right place. We also want to make sure that we have all the infrastructure in place for the buses to happen. Naturally, there have to be board conversations that we have to yet have here in the school district. Naturally, there are still conversations that we have to yet have, of course, with our partners, Highland Electric and Durham, and making sure that this all can come together. And so to see where Mr. Krohn is and to see our beginning stage is almost like full circle for me. To see how this can actually come about is also very important. I think when you think about clean energy, you know, we breathe the air that we breathe, and we want it to be clean, right? And so whatever we can do to improve our air quality in the United States of America, not just right here in Beloit or Palmyra-Eagle, we should be doing those things for the betterment of our environment. Now, that's just not a cliche. I think everybody wants to be able to breathe clean air and live in clean environments. And so hopefully this is something that will come to full fruition here in the school district of Beloit. Again, we are in the processes of making sure that those things can possibly happen. But again, we are in that first stage, that the growing stages of getting to, again, where Palmyra-Eagle has greatly showed us all kind of how this can actually transform a community. Naturally, the buses could be a first step. There's always conversations around wind turbines. I know, right? We have land in spaces out here in in South Wisconsin, I should say, where I believe that could be something that we can also think about. Possibly, I said wind turbines. I'm sorry, solar panels, not wind turbines. Solar panels. We have open fields, right? And the interesting thing about the open fields is maybe we can put those solar panels on to gather more energy for running our schools. And so, although we're not there yet, but this could be a stepping stone in this space, if everything pans out for us. Another thing I wanted to just bring note to is that, you know, naturally when we think about the buses, we also want to thank the people who drive the buses, right? Naturally, we have to have bus drivers. We have a pretty large school district here, a little over 5,000 students that services students here in Beloit. But I also think that our bus drivers play a huge part in that. I think in talking with the bus drivers, when we actually had an opportunity to visit Palmyra-Eagle, they all say the same thing, that the bus ride is much more easier. And actually, these buses can get up and go. They can, it was a different ride, you know, it was not the same, of course, we can't speed in buses, I know that, but the ride was smooth, and they of course had that acceleration that I think all electric vehicles come with, especially when they're not having to work so hard to do what we know. I believe, I should say, the buses are not having to work as hard with the electric space versus combustion engines. And so hopefully, again, as we work through our conversations here in the school district of Beloit, we'll land in a place similar to Palmyra-Eagle, and we will be able to give you a better update as it pertains to kind of where we are in these spaces. And so that is my real quick conversation, but I want to make sure that everyone knew that we are not where Palmyra-Eagle is yet. But we are in the beginning stages of this, but we were awarded the second highest award, I believe, in the state of Wisconsin with about 25 buses.
Yeah, absolutely. So exciting. So our next speaker is Joshua Williams.
Thank you, Jayne. And it's fitting to follow Dr. Garrison. So thanks for setting the scene. As I share my screen here, you'll have to forgive me. I'm not a Wisconsin resident. I live south of the border in Illinois, but we did bring our children to Cave of the Mountains, and ever since they just think Wisconsin is the most magical place, and they keep asking, when can we get back to Wisconsin? So thanks for the opportunity to join you. Highland, as Dr. Garrison alluded to, we're an electrification as a service provider, and so our goal is to partner with school districts and or their bus operator, like a Durham or another bus operator, and really be the electrification expert and kind of use our experience to help them deploy electric buses, really overcome the high upfront costs and the complexities. So then the school and the bus operator can focus on getting students to and from school on time and safely every day. So Jayne asked me to just talk a little bit about, the process of, how we can work with districts. And as you're considering a clean school bus program application, hopefully you win the award. And then what are some of the steps once the award has been announced. Did that move for you all to the next one? Great, thank you. Just to briefly mention, Highland, we're very fortunate to partner with a wide range of school districts, and we're really passionate about supporting a diverse set of districts. So this map shows how we're really able to work with districts from large urban settings, suburban districts, and also rural districts. So a couple weeks ago, we just had a ribbon cutting in Minnesota with Red Lake. They have 2 buses, a very rural community. And just yesterday, we had a ribbon cutting with a larger district called Jackson Public Schools in Michigan. And both districts will be driving through a lot of snow over the coming school year. So would love to share best practice or lessons learned with the group here as things progress. And the other thing just wanted to highlight is we've been fortunate to drive over 2 million miles in electric buses. So I reference this really just to encourage people that electric buses, the technology of the buses and the chargers, it's ready for everyday use. We're far beyond the science experiment phase of this. And I think, districts can rest assured that if you plan well, you can use these buses efficiently on a daily basis. Next, there we go. Just wanted to talk through a few steps of what electrification could look like. And these are the steps that Highland goes through, but whether a district does this independently or does this with a bus operator, it kind of maps out just some of the key facets that you want to consider. And so first, we always think you have to start at the community level and really understand what the community's goals are. And that will enable you to then design and plan a project that meets those goals. So, some districts, definitely want to cut transportation costs, and that's a good objective. Others, just want to get as many students in those, cleaner air seats as possible, and want to have like a phased approach over several years. Again, that can craft how you plan your project. The next thing we do is once you actually apply for a grant or a rebate and you're awarded, you start to understand what sort of buses and what sort of charging infrastructure can help your district. Something that we do at Highland is in a partnership, we often own the buses and or the charging stations. And as a private company, that enables us to get some of the tax benefits as far as depreciation and other benefits. And we're able to pass those savings onto a school district that maybe as a public institution doesn't have, hasn't paid taxes and can't necessarily gain some of those monetary benefits. So we're able to pass those along really with the goal of driving down the cost. And where we want to get to is a place of savings. And so it really becomes a matter of why not electrify your buses. The other thing we'll do is really come alongside a district and help train their staff. So that would include both the bus drivers and the maintenance technicians of a district. Typically what this looks like is maybe once the buses are delivered, it'll be several days of on-site training. That's really to start the process. But we think the bread and butter is actually on a daily basis, helping the staff troubleshoot. Maybe you're getting a weird message from a charger or a weird noise from the bus. And really it's a matter of just being on hand, ready to answer those questions in real time, we found is very valuable. And then once, the project's up and ready to go, we also then help on a daily basis make sure the buses are sufficiently charged. And we basically guarantee that the buses are ready to go for their daily route. And essentially, as long as the drivers plug in the bus at the end of their daily route, the software will then understand when is the optimal time to charge that bus overnight. And so maybe some utilities might have different rates at different times of the evening. So that software can actually tell the bus when to charge in order to get the best rates. And then lastly, we at Highland just focus on maintaining the buses over the long term. So we've been very fortunate to see that an electric bus, because there's only 100 moving parts as opposed to the thousands of moving parts on a diesel bus, the maintenance for these electric buses is actually much cheaper. So some districts can save anywhere from 30 to 50% just off of the routine maintenance compared to diesel buses. So it's been a great benefit. And really what we try to do is then package all of these steps into one bundled fixed cost, and really trying to take away some of the risk off of districts, because this is a transition. There are some new steps, but we really try to shoulder that risk on their behalf. So again, they could focus on getting children to and from school. Just very briefly, this is kind of a visual on all the steps I ran through. We tend to say it could take anywhere from 12 to 18 months, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes a little bit quicker. But roughly, these are kind of the steps and kind of how you phase them out over the course of several months. So Dr. Garrison mentioned they're at the beginning stages. I think our team, along with the team at Durham, we've been able to walk the depot and consider maybe a few other potential locations. And it's always important to get the local utility involved in those as well. So that's kind of where we're at with Dr. Garrison's team. And really, looking forward to sometime next year, those 25 buses being up and running on a daily basis. And just briefly before I close, I know we have a lot of community advocates that attend these sessions sponsored by Moms Clean Air Force. So just wanted to give a couple of suggestions on how community members could get involved. We won't read through all of them, but I think it's important, again, to understand what the district's goals are and kind of the values and objectives, and you could build a project from there. Next, you also want to learn a little bit about the current fleet as it is, and kind of when a district needs to get new buses, what's their timeline, and that could really help them understand, how many buses to apply for once a round is open. And then it's always great to connect with administrators like Dr. Garrison and Dr. Krohn that see the value in bringing these type of technologies to their communities. And we found whenever there's a local champion, that could really expedite the process. So we found that that's very important. And then just briefly, I think it's always great to find ways to bring students along for the ride, literally. So we've seen a lot of districts start to incorporate sustainability or electric bus lessons into their science curriculum. And I think that's been a great way to really get local ownership of these projects and get the whole community excited. And then lastly, I'd be remiss not to encourage people to just thank your bus drivers and your transportation staff. It is a tough job to get children to and from school. And I think the more the bus drivers are appreciated and also just brought along into this process, it will help the whole transition to electrification much smoother. So with that, I'll hand it back to Jayne. And thanks for dialing back in and bearing with us through the tech. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thank you so much, Joshua. Thank you so much. So let's go ahead and go to questions. Danielle is going to read them, and let's do that and continue to put them in the chat or the question box so that we can get to them. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle. I'm with Moms Clean Air Force. Thank you so much for getting back on after our technical glitch a few minutes ago. Thank you to all our panelists and to Jayne for sharing such critical information, and congratulations to the school districts that have or are in the process of getting their buses. So the first question that we got is for Superintendent Ryan Krohn. It says, congratulations on your successful CSB program and on all the other benefits it led to for your school district. Were there any unforeseen challenges or benefits to this program? And can you say a little bit more about installing charging infrastructure?
Yeah, thank you for the congratulations. It's been a team effort from the start. So really, we had some issues with just sort of coordinating all the logistics with getting the buses delivered, getting the installation in, getting the safety, the security of those pieces. Those were some of the technical pieces that we did. And I think that would be the same with any type of project that you'd undertake when you're going to involve a lot of different groups and organizations. So while it was delayed a little bit, it didn't cause any disruption. We still had backup plans for additional buses to use when we needed it. We did have a couple of buses that the charging ports maybe didn't work on, a couple of them that we had to do some problem solving. Well, nothing out of the ordinary, and nothing that the benefit of this is a team effort, is everybody picked up their end and wanted this to be successful. And so that was great. When it came to the infrastructure piece, again, we work with We Energies where we're located. So we had them come out and really start to look at some safety issues for where we would do some charging. We actually have a set of railroad tracks that goes really near our where they're parked, and what kind of safety issues did we have with that. Worked with police and fire departments in terms of accessing things should we get to a spot there's emergency. We wanted things to have some good access to that. So where they're located on our site, We Energy started to do really the main work of establishing and really making sure that we had the energy levels and the pull that we were going to do in our grid to do that piece. But I mentioned before, then we partner with In Charge was sort of our installation group that with the chargers, and then Giraffe Electric, which is a local electric company that came in and established a lot of the pieces as well. So sort of three parts in there, as well as us just figuring out where it would go on the property. So it was a pretty coordinated effort of what steps needed to happen when, and we were literally, mapping this out with the flow. You got to really think from a school standpoint, the flow of kids in the morning, the flow of parents, the pickup, the timing of how the buses were going to be able to get in, get out. Normally, if they're at an off-site terminal, that's a different infrastructure. Now we're doing this for the first time on our campus, so we wanted to find some safe areas for that would allow for things. So we think we got it right. In terms of those pieces, but it was definitely some things to think about. Even fencing, I'm going to be really honest, from a standpoint, the charging ports look like a video game system. They're cool looking, they're touch screen, things like that. We thought, okay, over the weekends, our children are going to be able to have access to those things and mess with it. But there was a lot of safety protocols put in there that we just wanted to be able to take a look at. And so that was really an important piece for that piece when it went in. But other than that system went in, and like I said before, early on, this pushed our thinking, which is, there are people that might need us as employees. Where we locate people are driving a pretty good distance to come to and from work every day. If this is part of the future and you see more and more electric cars and other pieces, what we could do. In addition, we have small vans, school vans, and other vehicles that we have. So we knew that all of a sudden that was a part of the conversation of how to use some of these vans that we use to transport kids for other things and other events, as well as just some of our vehicles that we use, golf carts for our football team and other things like that. Eventually, as we start to expand in this, we needed to start thinking of that realm. So that's where we went and currently live. And like I said, this was chapter 1, and we learned that there's a whole big book that we need to learn a little bit more about what we can do next.
Thank you so much for answering that question. I'll move on to the next one for Dr. Garrison. It says, have there been any, It says that any unforeseen questions or challenges come up in the application process, and do you have any advice for other school districts that are going through this process?
Sure, the application process, and I can ask Joshua to help me out with that too. The application process is, I'll be honest with you, my business manager came to me with the application, and I think it's pretty straightforward. There has to be a need, there has to be a desire. Of course, you put in information about your district naturally. There are some other questions on the application that I think are more specific to the community, that every district has to be mindful of. Beloit is a urban, I like to believe it's an urban community, nestled by the Rock River. And so there's some things that you have to, just be mindful of about your community. I don't think it was any major hiccups in the application process at all. Otherwise, it would have been brought back to me as it pertains to something that we need to work through. But I believe it's pretty straightforward. If there's a need and there's a desire, information from your community, and of course, the buy-in at the local level is also very important. Our board knew we were going to apply for this, right? And they also knew that when we got the award, here are some of the next steps that we got to make in order for it all to come to fruition. And so nothing very nothing that really stood out from application guide fee, but I can definitely take that question down and maybe get it back to Mrs. Black in reference to how we can make sure you got the right information.
Thank you so much, Dr. Garrison. The next question is for Tyler. Can you talk a little bit about how eligibility is determined?
Yeah, so eligibility was set by Congress when they passed the bipartisan infrastructure law. If you're curious to see if like your school qualifies for it, you can go on our webpage at EPA, and I think it's Clean School Buses, epa.gov/clean school bus. That lists out like the priority status, especially for like high need. There's a calculation, but there's also a list of schools on there. As for rural remote, that's based off of like a defined definition. You can click when you click on the list of schools and their priority status, it will list out if it's based off of high need, serving a tribe, or rural remote.
Thank you, Tyler. The next question is for Joshua, which I do think you answered this in your presentation and had come in a little bit earlier, but maybe you can just briefly touch upon it again. It says, what kind of training will be provided for drivers and maintenance staff on operating and servicing electric buses? How does it differ?
Yeah, it's a great question. Typically, once the buses arrive and the chargers are on site and commissioned or energized, there's power flowing through them. That's typically when we would work with the local staff to train them. And so it's usually about a several day on-site kind of seminar style training where it's in person, and you have people from the manufacturer and the charging station manufacturers kind of talk through physically, what it looks like. We've noticed that that's great, but a lot of the value comes from just the consistent troubleshooting and training once a school starts using the buses. So in our case at Highland, we have people that are on speed dial and in a way tend to be kind of pseudo therapists for the bus drivers and really talking through any and all questions they have. So it's really that kind of real-time communication I think has been most valuable.
Thank you, Joshua. Let me see. The last, Tyler, before our Zoom fell, there was a question about retired buses. Would you mind explaining that out loud? Because I know it was in the chat function.
Yeah. So generally speaking, the program is designed to replace old existing buses that are currently serving a school. So if you have those buses, there's requirements they have to meet for what you're going to replace. I just recommend you take a look at the guidance for the exact requirements. But yeah, it's a replacement program, so you can't really you can't expand a fleet through this program. So if you don't have the buses, you can't go out and just purchase electric school buses and be reimbursed for them.
Thank you, Tyler. So the last question I'll read out loud is for both school superintendents, and it says, were there any naysayers and how did you get them on board with applying?
I can get started if that's okay. So first of all, I think there's always naysayers in everything that you do. And the best part of that is they're telling you the things that you probably need to think about and communicate a little bit better. So we did have some people that were challenging where we were at, questioning the potential savings, questioning the potential benefits and things like that. And so really that's an important part of the process to understand that there's going to be groups that have a lot of questions and might want to do some challenges. We also have a current infrastructure. So you can imagine that current infrastructure, whether it's with gasoline or buses or other relationships that do exist. And so it took some time to start to change some of those pieces over, whether that was regarding maintenance or other things with the buses and things like that. So that did come in, but we did want to respectfully form that next level partnership. And we talked about what was going to continue from our organization, but where some shifts were going to happen. So in the end, this is a transformational change on some aspects for people because it required a new thinking, a new experience, and ultimately a new system for how we were going to work for some things. So that was there. And then really just from some parents, sometimes there was just people that maybe had their mind made up on why this was bad and were pretty opinionated on it. Again, we tried our best to invite people to be a part of the process, and our efforts were to do open houses, community bus rides. We ran some bus rides from different parking lots to football games and to other things that we did just to sort of form some of those relationships. So there was some kickback, but I think overall, the more we engaged people, the stronger we saw the support shift. And it's been since then, we've had really nothing, knock on wood, since they got started. It was more the process of it getting started when people wanted to share some things versus after it got going.
I think for the school district of Beloit, we haven't, like I said, haven't gotten too far down the road with it outside of course, going through the process where we are today. I think one of the things that I don't think it's necessarily naysayers, but more so like, you got to answer people's questions, right? They may have questions about what it is that we're trying to do. How is it going to benefit the school district of Beloit? What does this impact on our students? What does this impact on our environment? Is there, questions that, we haven't thought about? And that's when I reach out to, of course, Mr. Krohn over in Palmyra-Eagle. I think we just have to answer the questions as they come. Naturally, when students are able to get on the bus and start riding, I think it's just the same. It's the ride, right? You get on the bus, you're going to school, or you're going to some specific activity or certain sporting events that may be right here in the city or closer to our school district. And again, it becomes just about the ride. And if the ride is everything that a kid wants or a family wants, I believe it starts speaking for itself. And I think that's what already has happened in Palmyra-Eagle. And we look forward to the possibilities that could possibly be for the school district of Beloit.
Thank you. A great note to end on. I will pass it over to Jayne, but before I wanted to remind the audience that we will be sending a full recording of the webinar along with slides from this presentation, both to you and to some others that weren't able to be here. So I'll pass it over to Jayne to close us out. Thank you all.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you so much to all of our speakers. If you're watching this webinar and you have a question and you would like it to be answered, please email it to jblack@momscleanairforce.org. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, panelists. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Good to see everyone. Thank you.